Hello. Thank you for joining us on another episode of A Focus on Careers. This program, this project is to give people out there, be they young people who are looking towards what they want to do when they leave school, or people who are looking at changes and transitions through their careers. So thank you very much for joining us. And today we'd like to introduce Keegan Dunsford and to share his career with you. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Keegan, and I'm going to start off with Keegan. What do you do?
That's a very hard question for me to answer. Some people might find that easy. For me, it's slightly harder. So right now, my current role, I'm a wagering compliance specialist. So what that technically means is I work for an American company called FanDuel. They are a sister company to the sports bet that the Australian people might know. So sportsbet.com.au. FanDuel is the American arm of that. And essentially what I do is I make sure that in every single state in America, people are betting on the correct things that legally they are allowed to do in that state, albeit that underage bettors, be that, certain states don't approve certain sports. So Arizona might allow people to wager on soccer, and Tennessee might not. So you have to you're having to use technology, using your head, really getting together with other teams to make that happen. And so that's kind of what I do. Yeah.
Wow. So that's quite interesting. So you do a role that covers the United States, but you do it from Sydney, Australia, and today you're doing it from your room, right? Because of isolation. So that's quite interesting. So Keegan, how did you, before we get into the details of the role itself and the attributes, etc., it's interesting to follow your path through that. Now, at school and after school, and what did you do and how did you get into that?
Yeah, so I think when I wanted to leave school, of course, there was, all the options that most people, I think, are aware of. You can be an apprenticeship plumber, electrician, or you can be an accountant or a cop or something like that. And they're all kind of the very basic things. And not to say that they're not needed, but they're just kind of the things everyone knew about. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was sounds like a lot of your viewership, and didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I chose a very broad degree at university. I chose to stick it out and finish year 12, and chose a really broad degree, which was commerce at Macquarie University here in Sydney. Right. And from there, I just thought, I'm going to do this degree, and just once I leave, I'll figure it out. And I mean, that might stress some people out, but not knowing what they want to do. But I think if you're unsure, keeping your options open is a good thing, in my opinion, and it worked for me.
Great advice. Yeah.
And then from there, I finished in the 3 years with a commerce degree. Wasn't an A+ student at university, but I wasn't failing anything, so it was pretty average in the line there. And suddenly, something in me decided that I really like betting. And at the age of 18 or 19, that can be a concern to some people, but I tried to make that into it. Make that into a positive.
We're the largest gambling nation on earth per capita. So, yeah. No, not a shock from an Australian perspective.
Definitely not a shock, no. And I think, like, a lot of things with a lot of trial and error, like I started gambling myself. My family was never into gambling. My parents were never into horse racing or sports betting or anything like that. And I just started, very small bets. So I was just really interested in the maths behind it, really, not in terms of just the winning the money. I was really kind of fascinated at how, horses have different odds, or, if people aren't sure how betting works, a different team will have a different odd kind of attached to that.
So the probabilities, the statistics behind that. So, right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I was just fascinated by that. And then I, was doing that, and I actually wrote my own algorithms that I was trying to beat the bookies essentially back in the day. And I was doing all right with that. That I was doing that kind of during university, and then when I left, I kind of thought, what am I doing here? I can do this full time, try to be a professional gambler, or I become the person taking the bet, which in my head was a lot of a safer, kind of less stressful way of making money and being in the industry. And so that's kind of the story of how I kind of got into it. But to get into the industry I did, it's very kind of, I guess, cutthroat in terms of how to get in there, but
Right.
with a lot of, I guess, ingenuity and I guess effort, I emailed 145 different kind of bookmakers, on-course bookmakers. So, if I don't know if anyone's ever been to the races who watch this, the people who hold the bags and take the bets at the races. I messaged 145 of them through email and LinkedIn, and 2 got back to me. Sorry, 3 got back to me. 3 got back to
So
me.
from a statistical perspective, that's incredible, right? I mean, that's persistence. Now, that's one of the things that I just want to stop you there and give individuals out there, people that are looking at a career, or people looking at transitioning. One of the most important things is that persistence. We can be very much turned off by rejection, turned off by the effort, but that effort and that persistence shines through, and it's seen by prospective employers, and it helps you build a tough skin to progress forward. So that's amazing. 145, you said?
145, yeah.
145, and you only got 3 responses. Were they all positive or negative?
2 of them were like, this industry is dying, don't get into it. Right. Which was a weird thing to get back from an industry that I assumed was thriving and was going really well. One person got back to me, and whether it was luck, he kind of just said, I woke up this morning thinking that I need some help because, he had a young fellow who was growing up, and he goes, I need some help. And so I drove down to Nowra. There's a horse racing track called Kembla down there.
Okay. So for those that don't know, that's what, from Sydney to Nowra, that's what, 3-4 hours, or?
Yeah, about 3-4 hours. Yep.
3-4 hour drive. So that's again, persistence. Yep.
Yeah. And so I did that, and then was prepared to do that I was doing it for free. He said, you come down on Saturdays, just work with me and I'll teach you a bit. And this guy had been doing it for 35 years. So I thought, So I was working at a nursery Monday to Friday, essentially, at a plant nursery, and then driving there on the Saturday. Of the 145 people I messaged, 3 got back to me. The following week, one other person got back to me, and that was a startup company in Sydney that had just gone online and realized they needed someone else. And I managed to get interviewed there, and then I guess the rest is history from there on. So I didn't have to drive down to Nowra too many times, but I guess it shows that, that's what you have to do. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite impressive. Now, the one that finally contacted you, the startup, was that the organization you're with now, or was there another step there?
No, so that they were a small startup out of Rose Hill in Sydney, and I was there for about 5 or 6 years. It was me and one other employee, and then the rest were actually owners. The other 3 people who worked there were owners. So I was working directly with the owners. These guys had a combined kind of 60, 70 years in the industry. And I learned a lot of things there, about probability, mathematics, psychology. In gambling, you kind of, you have to kind of see kind of people's mindsets, and especially we had a lot of people who were smart betting with us. So we had a lot of professional gamblers betting with us, and so you kind of having to play the man, not the numbers sometimes. And they taught me a lot. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So so obviously then you picked up some experience on your own, starting off, dabbling in it, and then realizing that it wasn't particularly the gambling that was interesting you. It was the maths and science behind it, right? Then you go down to this chap that's been doing it for many, many years, 30 odd years or whatever, and you pick up some of the ropes from his experience. And his experience, I take, was purely manual. There was no technology there. It was on the track. So you're engaging with the punter there and then, and seen the human side to it. Then you move back to this startup where it's heavily in technology. You've got the owners who've had that hands-on experience, and you're bringing it all together.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
into
and there I learned a lot of stuff. I was trading sports, so for people who don't really know, I would watch games of AFL, NRL, soccer, and move the odds based upon things happening within the game. I was having the price up
so live. The odds are changing on
live.
Wow, right, right.
And then I do a lot of kind of pre-match stuff, so risk in terms of bets would come in, and I would have to make decisions whether to take the bets from the customer or limit them, or not take the bet at all, and do stuff like that. And based upon a number of factors, including I guess the price versus our kind of price versus the competitor. So the way I put it is, it's kind of like if going to Coles and seeing that there's a loaf of bread's $2 there, then going to Woolworths and realizing it's $1.50, you're going to buy the $1.50. It works the opposite way in gambling. You're always going to take the higher price because that gets you the most return. So it's more just managing that versus competitors, and that's where I learned a lot of the basics. And after 5 years, I had a bit of a strong knowledge base there, and
So now you've so clearly you've used your commerce degree there from an economics perspective, a business perspective, because I mean this is it's almost what I would consider like stock market, almost like high frequency trading. It's all about the data, it's all about the information. Long ago, I remember we had a I could talk about it now because it was decades and decades ago, but we had an SP bookie next door to us. And, it was all shady characters and, looking through the peephole before they let people in. And it was betting basically there and then. Now you've got tremendous amounts of data behind it. You've got the weather, you've got the track record of the individual team or the player, the horse, whatever it can be. And you've got a whole lot of other environmental aspects to it, be it competitors, be it, the fast trackers. So is it raining on Monaco for the Grand Prix? Is, all these sorts of things. So that's quite interesting. So you're doing a lot of research in the background then.
Definitely. Yeah. We would have Twitter open. We would have the Bureau of Meteorology apps open on our phone to see whether the weather was going to come near the MCG to affect an AFL game and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow. So that's it's quite bizarre how much is involved there. So then you move to Sportsbet.
Yeah. So I've always,
or the company. Sorry.
Yeah. So pretty much, technically I do work with Sportsbet. It's just kind of a sister company that I do most of the work for.
Right.
Yeah. So I applied for a role there. Not that I didn't enjoy my current role, but I just felt that at a startup, there's not much more you can really do when there's only 4 employees. And I think, I don't know, this is my advice, and I think a lot of people my age like this advice too, is to stick it out at those startups to get that I guess hands-on experience. And I essentially walked into a role that otherwise I wouldn't be able to walk into in Sportsbet. So I moved to Melbourne for this role. This was a role that paid a lot less and was in Melbourne. So I moved my whole life to Melbourne for this role. But this was to get experience at the biggest company in Australia that does what they're the biggest kind of company in Australia. So yeah.
And again, you know, this is a sort of a testament to your character, I would say, from my personal observation here, at your go-get-it attitude. Now, that's no pun intended, but that's a punt in itself, right?
Yeah,
you're taking this risk, uprooting. So, okay, it's not millions of miles, but it's away from your family and friends. But you've made your mind up that for me to wrap up my career, to really, get the best experience. Yeah, the money's not as great, and I've got to move myself all the way to Victoria. They're the sorts of things people sometimes need to do. So clearly you did that. You went to Melbourne.
And so a lot of people thought it was a bit of a risk. I'd always wanted to work for Sportsbet, and I knew it was a risk. But I was young, and I mean, when you're 20, how old was I then? I was 24 or 23. You go, wow, if I don't make it here, my career's over. That's not how things are. It's I'm now 27, and I believe that my career hasn't even started yet. So if you change careers 3 or 4 times before you're 27, like this, I don't know, it's not the end of the world, essentially.
It's great. Clear. You learn from experience, and this
Yeah.
is the thing that folks that are starting careers or looking to start careers or looking to change careers need to understand. I mean, life in itself is trial and error. We learn along the way. As long as you take something away from that and learn something, that's tremendous. So now you're in Victoria. How long were you there for?
I was there for about 2 years. I learned a lot. So I was doing risk and operations. So essentially a similar role that I was doing
Mm-hmm.
back at my old startup, but just on a bit of a larger scale, of course, going from 1,000 clients that we had at my startup to about 1 million clients. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a massive thing, and it was learning the American market. And I had no idea what was happening. And for those people who don't know, the USA only legalized sports betting in 2018. So that's why.
Seriously?
Yeah. So that's how the market's taken off now. And FanDuel, which is the company I was talking about, which I technically work for, has nearly 50 employees in Australia right now. So yeah, it's an excellent and so I learned a lot there. Learning from people who, I guess this is more of a corporate type job. I learned a lot about the way how big businesses operate, and so which was good because I'd only ever worked for a small business, and if I wanted to change something, I could change it. But here, there's different layers of bureaucracy you have to go through, and
policies,
policies,
procedures,
yeah,
levels of authority to
yeah.
sign off on things. Yeah, that's
But
big
yeah, and then
business.
so I learned a lot there, and I mean, the experience that I had before kind of enabled me to really push for other roles. And I got offered a job in compliance, which is essentially kind of a halfway between risk and trading, which is my old role, and legal. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, I'm the kind of go between them now. And yeah, it's been a very challenging role because it's a space that I don't know about. But I'm still in the industry I love, but I'm also not doing the stuff I was doing before. I'm doing something different. So that's kind of,
Right.
yeah.
So when you talk about for some of the people that don't really understand that risk compliance, and when we're looking at risk, obviously we're measuring the potential for loss
Yeah.
or either financial loss or reputational loss,
Mm-hmm.
and for compliance you're looking for people complying with your internal policies and procedures of your company, and the way
Yeah.
it, the terms and conditions, the fine print for the
Mm-hmm.
punters, but also the compliance with local legislation, and the difficulty, I guess, of having an online presence is that online presence crosses multiple borders, both
Mm-hmm.
geography, both state and international borders.
Mm-hmm.
And as you alluded to earlier, each one of those has very different rules and regulations. So is there a lot of artificial intelligence in the background in your computer systems and algorithms there that are churning through and trying to identify people not following the rules? How do
Yeah.
you
So
work that?
it's a mixture of AI and human. So what the AI and kind of tech does for us is make sure that like geofencing, which is kind of like making sure that people, it'd be the same in Australia. So if anyone has ever gambled or even used an app that can only be used in Australia, you'll notice when you go overseas, it doesn't allow you to use that. That's one line of defense we have to stop people betting who are not supposed to be betting in that area.
Do they
Um,
use VPNs to get around
it,
that?
of course I do. So every day we have people using VPNs, but we've gotten really good at detecting those. Um,
Right.
Betting agencies have the best geofencing and tech capabilities in the world. So Sportsbet actually our tech team actually helped make the COVID app that Australia has.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's a really fascinating thing. And yeah, so it's AI and human. And so my job is to kind of do a lot of the manual work in terms of making sure that I have to kind of be an expert in all sports. You know, I have to know when the NBA finals run. I have to know when the rugby league grand finals on. I have to know when the lacrosse season starts in America. So
Oh,
it's
US, yeah, of course.
yeah. So all these minor sports too that a lot of the governments over there don't want people betting on kind of Russian table tennis. So I have to make sure that the Russian table tennis that we offer in Australia doesn't make it to the websites over in America using tech and manual inputs. So
Right, right. Wow. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, we look at this small box that we consider to be, gambling, and you see it on your screen all day, every day, and particularly if you've got, sports on, which we regularly have on
yeah,
here. But there is a tremendous business behind it, a tremendous technology, risk, compliance, mathematics, economics, the whole box and dice that applies to it. So, Keegan, a question for you on the mix of folks in your industry. I know,
hmm
I mean, Guy Waterhouse and the Waterhouse family and all the rest of it have been prominent on field there, but male, female, how does it look from that perspective?
So it is a heavily male dominated industry at the moment.
Right.
Especially when I was working on race courses and kind of on course, it was very male dominated. In the sports bet, they call themselves a tech company, so they're not a gambling company, they're a tech company. So
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
in that, a lot of the other departments have quite an even mix. So finance, accounting, marketing, customer service has
HR.
quite HR has an even mix. HR, I'd suggest, is even more female dominated, albeit kind of the smaller end of the scale. But yeah, but in terms of risk and trade, which is kind of the industry in itself, it is male dominated,
Right,
but
right.
that's changing. It is changing a lot at the moment, and which I think is a good thing because I think diversity is a good thing, and I think it means that there's a lot more opportunities for even in different age groups. So it's a very young male dominated. The
Right.
CEOs and the higher management are over
Yeah.
40 for the 45 the max. And yeah, so it's a career where you can progress quickly because the management is younger. But in terms of a female male diversity thing, the industry is pushing for more females, and I think it's the boys' club that might have been in 20 or 30 years ago is gone, and it's a
Yeah.
very good environment for, I guess, females. I think we work with females every day now, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I think, Keegan, I think your point there, it has traditionally been a frowned upon industry.
yes,
Okay. Oh, he's a gambler,
mm,
stay away from him. He's a gambler, these sorts of things. It's become a lot more polished. And it's like everything. If you've got a product, be it a soft drink, be it a health food or whatever it is, you want to market it to the
yeah, definitely,
broadest
yeah,
base, you can. You can't limit it to one part of the population. And I think the fact that it's become technology based, it's become sophisticated and professional. I feel that, and people out there listening to this or watching this will see that there are tremendous opportunities from a multiple career sort of uh, opportunities within the industry itself.
definitely.
And it's not just taking bets and making bets. There's a whole lot behind it, and it's a profession. Really, when you look at what you're doing from a risk and compliance and governance perspective, I think that's critical.
Yeah,
And
it's a way to kind of if you are interested in sports, it's a way to kind of get involved with that
Mhm.
that even if you don't really think you have the aptitude for mathematics or probability, or that kind of the trading type of thing. The
Yeah.
marketing team looks like the funnest, most fun marketing team in kind of Australia. Like, they have so much fun. They make all
Yeah.
these goofy ads that you might have seen on TV, and
Oh, mate,
yeah,
brainwashed. Yes.
brainwashed. Yeah, and so there's this, it's not just that. There's finance, accounting, marketing, HR, people leaders, thought leaders. There's
Yeah. And
yeah,
and if you were saying earlier that a lot of your work is getting into the mind of people out there, and
yeah,
that's where I think diversity is important, because you need not just gender diversity, but diversity of thought, and a
yeah,
diversity of experience, and that comes with age as well. So young and the old. So you get a mixture, and you'll be able to capture all the compliance aspects of it across the spectrum there.
yeah, definitely.
So where do you, I mean, from a day-to-day perspective, what do you find difficult about the role sometimes? Well, things that you'd think to yourself, oh, if I could just take this out of the day-to-day, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think it would be how difficult it has been dealing with government over in America somewhat. Not in terms of the people there, it's just in terms of how different it is to Australia. So a really small example is that in Australia, you can pretty much bet on anything. You can bet on two flies crop wall is the kind of the
Yeah.
quote unquote thing. But I'm just watching the Olympics right now. There was just a BMX rider that was cycling, and in Australia you can bet on that. In a lot of states in America, they don't allow betting on that for whatever reason, and they don't really have to give you a reason because of the government. So um, it's just kind of getting into the mindset of, I guess, a government that's very new to betting.
Yeah.
That they kind of compare the market over there to the market here in the 90s. So they're about 30 years behind.
Wow.
So yeah, but have the tech of today. So it's a really weird mixture. So yeah.
Wow. Difficult. Well, I mean, it makes, I think that's a challenge, but it's also interesting, I think, to
It's
be
an
to be looking
opportunity,
at.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what about what's your favorite part of the job?
Um, I think it would be kind of scouting for new because if we want to bet on a sport, we have to take it, fill out form or write a document together to send off to each government, and it's kind of getting out there and going, someone might send me going, oh, a customer might go, I want to place a bet on Nathan's hot dog eating contest, the annual kind of hot dog eating contest, and I go, okay, that's fine. I'm literally writing a document together that's on the integrity of the hot dog competition. I can't sit there. I'm like, what is this? And I'm looking up, professional food eating, governance boards, and seeing their terms and conditions within their sites, and then I take this to the government and be like, look, this is how there won't be any match fixing in this, or and that's a pinching moment where I'm like, if I was doing this at a bank, I would have quit a long time ago. But because this is sports related thing, and and even the finance people who do the exact same job as someone at a bank or an insurance firm, it's different. The vibe's different because everything's about sport. You might be doing a consolidation of expenses, but it's all about sport. So yeah.
That's quite interesting. I mean, it's an interesting industry, and it's it's very insightful to see the science and the technology behind all of that. So where do you see yourself going from this? I mean, as you said, you've just changed career, you're in this role, you're loving this role, you're enjoying it. Are there further progressions within the industry itself? Or, I mean, your skills, to me, again, as just a bystander here observing, are quite transferable. And you referenced banking in the past a couple of times. I mean, that's sort of a role, whether it's gambling, whether it's widgets, whether it's shares, whether it's Bitcoin, whatever the case may be, the same principles same principles apply. You're looking at the risk, you're looking at the governance, the compliance around it, and you're pricing a market,
Yeah.
whether it's the hot dog eating contest or the price of Bitcoin next week or the
Yeah.
price of oil in 6 months. So
Yeah. Like,
what
I
do you?
mean, the skills are quite transferable to an extent. I think it is in essence a niche market, so to speak. But if you kind of have the drive, you can get the skills that are transferable. So like if I was just to stay and price up horse racing, develop a horse racing algorithm my whole life, I wouldn't have the skills that I mean transferable to maybe a share algorithm. It wouldn't really, you couldn't really do anything else. But there are so many different avenues because these businesses are just getting bigger. There are different avenues to go down, and like I'm in kind of the legal compliance at the moment, and that's very transferable. And half the reason I wanted to take this was because it's transferable, and I have no intention of leaving the industry, but if I ever did in the future, it is transferable then. For the future though, there are massive trajectories at these companies. Because there's a few of them, you can bounce between them if you would like. I haven't done that, so to speak, but you can do that. And yeah, there's team leadership roles. There's moving country. You can,
Right.
because we're launching in Canada in soon, I believe, and that's an opportunity to go live and work over there, or live and work in New Jersey, New York, Tennessee. If you choose an international kind of industry or business, I guess the opportunities there, if you like, you travel, kind of open up. Not right now, of course, but in the future, yeah.
Right. And I mean, from a work-life balance, how do you find it? I mean, you're working on US hours, I'm guessing, yeah?
Mostly, yeah. So I look after kind of the Australian hours of US time, though, through 24/7. So there's someone over in Ireland in Dublin, and also someone in America.
Okay,
But
so you follow the sun.
yeah,
The baton travels around the world. Wow,
exactly.
so that's interesting. Yeah.
There are a few, there are the odd meetings that most of my meetings are around 6 or 7 a.m. And most of my I'm on meetings with maybe a different country might be at night, but it's all about just maintaining your sanity. And if I have 4 hours of meetings from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., taking the next 5 hours off, and not working till 4 or 5 p.m. And yeah, it's the industry at the start is, if you're looking for like a risk and trade role where you're in with a sport and trading, entry level, it is weekend work and night work. But if you work hard enough, you can get to a role that doesn't require you to work every weekend, or
Right.
exactly, stuff like that. Yeah.
So there is a good balance there. Just something of interest just cropped into my mind on that. Are you precluded from gambling
In Australia,
in your role? Yeah, because of your role. I mean, for example, if you work in a bank, then there are certain shares you can't trade, or certain
yeah.
things you need to get through compliance before you get. Is the same apply for people that work in your sort of industry or your role in particular?
Not to, like, people might assume that, but of course I can't bet with the company that I work for.
Right.
Other employees might be able to, but definitely the people who can influence the odds and stuff like that can't bet, for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But I can go down to the TAB right now if I could, and place a bet. I can ring up any bookmaker in Australia and place a bet. Whether they take my bet knowing that I'm in the industry is a whole nother thing. So,
And do you need to disclose that?
you don't need to disclose that, but
Right.
but every company's risk team would know. So based upon your betting pattern, your betting style, what you're betting on, even at my old role, we would look people up on LinkedIn to see what they do for work. So
wow,
it's kind of like it's kind of like an investigative kind of role too. Like, you're looking at people, who they might be, betting every day, and we're like, oh, they seem quite smart. They're, not, they may not necessarily be winning, but their bets are smart. It's hard to kind of, I guess, explain that. They're betting what we believe is a higher odd than it should be, essentially.
Right.
Or or they people, we look them up and they're the a manager at the Bureau of Meteorology, and then they're getting weather information before us, and we now know why, when they bet on something, it always rains, or something like that, and we figured that out. Yeah. So
fascinating, amazing
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Amazing stuff. Well, that's an amazing, career. Short so far, a long way to go.
yeah,
But you've
definitely.
done a tremendous amount of work. So what is the role called that you currently sit in?
Wagering
Your
compliance lead.
wagering compliance lead.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So, I mean, thank you very much for your time,
No worries
Keegan.
at all. Thanks for having
Really
me.
appreciate your time and your insights. If anybody's got any questions for Keegan, please just slot them down in the comments below, or you can send an email to a Focus on Careers email address, which will be down below as well. If you know anyone or you yourself have an interesting career you'd like to share, drop us a line and we'll try to set you up on the video and podcast. So thanks again, Keegan. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll speak to you again someday soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. See you later.